Richard Dean Anderson stunned Hollywood in 2013 when he turned down projects worth $30 million. Only 63 years old he was. It was still early in his career. His return was begged for by the studios. Yet Anderson was hiding something. Anderson has been hiding a dirty little secret from the industry for decades, according to those close to him. He has never spoken publicly about something that happened during his MacGyver years because it traumatized him so deeply. Hollywood insiders' treatment of him sheds light on his decision to remain silent rather than pursue fame. A chilly January day in 1950 saw the birth of Richard Dean Anderson. Dawson Creek, British Columbia was the site of his birth, and his mother had just given birth. However, they brought the infant and crossed into America within 3 days. They eventually made their home in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Richard was the first of 4 brothers he would have. Stuart was not just a teacher. He was more than that. By day, he was an English and drama teacher, and by night, he was a jazz bassist. Jocelyn, his mother, had a natural talent for painting and sculpture. Music, art, and the glitter of stage lights have always been a part of Richard's life. The aroma of fresh paint and jazz would frequently reverberate through their home. Even as a young boy, he would observe his dad rehearse plays in the high school auditorium. The sight of actors eating Twinkies during a rehearsal as a birthday cake left an impression on him. Any job offer that included free Twinkies was too good to pass up, he thought. Daydreaming and ice hockey were his worlds as a child in the suburb of Roseville. His passion for the sport was almost pathological. Even though he was good, people referred to him as a hockey nut. Really good. Even hockey great Stan Mikita spoke highly of him. If Richard could go pro, he would. However, those aspirations were dashed when she was only 16 years old. A rough game collision broke one of his arms first. Then not even 3 weeks after that, he shattered the other. He spent 3 months in the hospital after the second break, which necessitated surgery involving pins and plates. He might lose movement permanently, according to the doctors. Actual teams were scouting him during that time. More than physical agony, it was the wrenching loss of everything. Disorientation set in. He lived and breathed hockey. There it was, vanished. A deep despair set in. There seemed to be no end to my time in the hospital. The agony in his bones wasn't nearly as painful as the emptiness that came from never skating again. But in that stillness, an unforeseen development started to take shape. His father's school plays began to capture his attention. Theatrical groups welcomed him. His arms were still in casts when he performed. When everything else had faded away, acting provided him with a grip. A fire was lit that would never go out somewhere in the midst of those little productions. Richard had a difficult upbringing. He came from a poor family. The money his dad made barely covered the rent. It was hit or miss with the music gigs. All 4 boys had to help out. Newspapers were delivered by Richard. He was a man who understood the significance of every dollar. Attempts to bike from Minneapolis to Duth when he was 10 years old taught him to make do with less. That's quite a 100-mile trek. The entire scheme was kept from his parents by him. Riding his bike, he set off. His little frame finally gave out halfway through the 50 meters. A U-turn was in order. In any case, it wasn't a failure. He was brave enough to attempt something most adults wouldn't even consider when they were 10 years old. He was already a voracious danger seeker by the time he was 17. He embarked on a bicycle journey across the country. He traversed 5,600 meters from Minnesota to Alaska, passing through Canada on the way. For the last 33 days, he worked entirely on his own. There was no support vehicle, no group, just him, his bike, and the harsh mountain and weather conditions. He had encountered a terrifying snowstorm in Taos, New Mexico earlier that year, with winds of 105 mph that left him stranded in whiteout conditions. Even after surviving, he persisted in wanting more. He mastered the art of scuba diving. He became proficient on motorbikes. A Harley Davidson was one of 4 that he purchased. For enjoyment, he would leap from school roofs. After crashing dirt bikes, he'd get back up and smile. On one occasion, he jumped off a board, slammed his head, and required stitches. It had no effect on his speed. He once decided to live in an igloo for an entire winter in Minnesota in an effort to set a record. He did it all by himself. For 3 days, he remained inside. He almost died of hypothermia. However, he viewed that as merely another obstacle. He had a lot of daring adventures and near misses while he was a teenager. Pain didn't frighten him. Failure didn't scare him. He was frightened just by being motionless. Richard Dean Anderson left Ohio University and relocated to Los Angeles in 1976, taking a massive risk. All he had was a dream and a great deal of unpredictability to keep him going. He spared no effort. His time spent performing at a marine show alongside whales was among his most unusual jobs. Not only did he need the money for rent, but he also learned to remain composed and collected in front of large audiences at that job. This came after he had honed his acting chops in the New York City theater scene. He was getting ready for something bigger with every odd job and small stage. Everything shifted in the spring of that same year, 1976. His breakout role came on General Hospital. He remained for 5 years, appearing in 611 episodes, playing the role of Dr. Jeff Weber. This occurred on July 26, 1976. At the same time, the show ran for 45 minutes instead of 30. A rapid ascent in the ratings ensued. General Hospital had already surpassed all other daytime dramas in 1979. Anderson rode that wave as well. He shared the screen with Stuart Damon and Denise Alexander, among others. Before he left in 1981, he had become more than just another actor in a soap opera. Producers had begun to take notice of him. He continued at a rapid pace after that. His 1981 guest appearance as Brian Parker on The Facts of Life came immediately after General Hospital. Afterwards, he made guest appearances on The Love Boat in 1982 as Carter Randall and Today's FBI as Andy McFay. None of these jobs were random. Every single one was handpicked. He was demonstrating his versatility beyond the realm of soap operas. Range was his goal, and he accomplished it. As he gained experience and worked with different directors and crews, he expanded his network. However, not all was successful. He starred in 2 CBS series from 1982 to 1984. For 22 episodes, he portrayed Adam McFadden in 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. The next 22 episodes were at Emerald Point, NASA, where he played the role of Lieutenant Simon Adams. After only 1 season, both shows were canceled. 2 major opportunities, 2 major setbacks. Such consecutive bombs can be fatal to the career of an up-and-coming actor. However, Anderson persisted. He took note of what worked and what didn't, and he learned from his observations. Until 1985, when the role that would alter everything showed up. Something out of the ordinary occurred during his 1985 audition for MacGyver. His spectacles were visible as he arrived. He wore them all the time. He had no intention of appearing cool or making an impression. The producers were impressed by that genuine, unfiltered moment. No ordinary action star would have sufficed. Real people were what they sought. Anderson was cast in the role. Despite his lack of stunt training, he managed to persuade them to let him handle the majority of his own stunts. See, he was responsible for 70% of the risky scenes. Being hands-on was important to him. Like MacGyver, he despised firearms in real life. That pairing was spot on. It was a total bombshell. The 139 episodes of MacGyver ran from 1985 to 1992. From his days as a soap actor, Anderson became a television legend. Although he was already making $1 million per season by 1990, he truly started to cash in when he successfully negotiated producer credits for subsequent seasons. He also received a portion from the syndication. Everyone could see MacGyver. The show's intelligence and lack of violence made it a hit with parents. They thought science was awesome, so the kids loved it. Words like MacGyver even entered the vernacular. You mangled something instead of fixing it. He revived the character for a Super Bowl commercial in 2006, which was 14 years after the show had ended. The character's immersion in pop culture reached that level. However, there was a cost to success. Anderson fell into a concealed hole in 1987 while filming a scene involving running over uneven ground. His disc ruptured. He didn't merely injure his ankle. His leg was numb with agony. Despite his inability to walk correctly, he persisted. He filmed episodes while in excruciating pain for over 6 months, consuming painkillers and stubbornly refusing assistance. "Stop using stunt doubles," he said. He was afraid to appear weak, yet the harm was undeniable. Permanent nerve issues were the warning that doctors gave him. He consented to surgery in the end, but the pain was constant. Throughout the remainder of the performance, he kept it on stage. From Anderson's own childhood came one of the most iconic moments in the first episode of MacGyver. He had a curious mind and a passion for disassembling objects when he was a child. The now famous paperclip bomb originated from that practice. The original script did not include it. Anderson recalled it from memory. In fact, he had constructed such things during his childhood. The pilot episode had an impressive 10.9 rating when it aired. Approximately 20 million individuals tuned in as a result. Although the network was initially let down, that particular scene went down in history. Anderson became the go-to guy for writers seeking his opinion on potentially MacGyver inventive ideas. Not only did he portray the part, he also helped shape it. The stress of the show finally got to him in 1991. On set, he passed out. Due to extreme fatigue, dehydration, and stress, he passed out. He was only operating at 20% capacity, according to the doctors. He was entirely exhausted. The studio was asked to release him, he said. They declined. He would face a $18 million lawsuit if he resigned. Those were not bluffing numbers. He was shackled and compelled to continue filming despite his deteriorating health. In retrospect, he saw how the show had consumed him. Everything outside of it had vanished. Richard Dean Anderson stunned MGM in 1997 when he asked for an unprecedented favor in exchange for his role as Stargate SG-1's lead actor. He was not interested in a permanent position. A 3-day workweek was his demand. So we were off the hook from Friday through Sunday, so he could return to his house and be with Y, his newborn daughter. It was unbelievable to the producers. It seemed ridiculous to rearrange the shooting schedule of a whole show just to accommodate one actor. The hit series of the late 80s and early 90s, MacGyver, was Anderson's previous project. Millions of viewers could be enticed just by hearing his name. Following this, MGM gave in. It was done. With just part-time employment, he was able to earn $100,000 every episode. Incredibly, that part-time arrangement continued for a full decade. Out of 214 episodes, Anderson managed to make an appearance in 173. In Hollywood, that 3-day deal became famous. As a result, other performers began to ask for the same thing. But nobody managed to pull it off to the same extent as he did. Things became even more out of hand by 2001, when the show was in its 5th season. The amount Anderson was paid had increased by 100%. His salary had increased to $200,000 every episode. His season salary amounted to $4.4 million, and he was only working 3 days a week. At its peak, Stargate SG-1 was attracting 2.5 million viewers per week, making it the most popular science fiction show. The show's syndication deals were raking in over $100 million worldwide. For the opportunity to appear on a panel together, fan conventions would pay Anderson and Amanda tapping as much as $50,000. Even though many of his lines were cut from the script, the fans still adored him. Anderson improvised many of O'Neill's scathing one-liners while filming. The show itself brought in over $30 million for him over the course of its 10 seasons. And that doesn't even account for the money that reruns and residuals bring in even now. But there were a few bumps along the way. Something occurred in 2004 that altered Anderson's life forever. In what ought to have been a straightforward running scene, he hurt his knee while filming season 8. But he stepped on the wrong foot. His knee bent. These ligaments were torn. The agony was sudden. Months of rehabilitation followed his surgery. Medical professionals were honest with him, warning, keep doing physical scenes and he could lose his ability to walk properly. Rather than let him go from the show, producers cleverly made a change. It was decided that Colonel O'Neill would spend most of his time seated at a desk after his promotion to Brigadier General. More than half of his action sequences were omitted. His followers noticed a change in his activity level, but they were perplexed as to why. Years later, the truth was revealed. Anderson continues to walk slightly off-kilter to this day. Insurance paid for the majority of the nearly $200,000 worth of treatment. It was still a watershed moment, though. He swore off any role that required him to be physically active. Season 4, Double Jeopardy, which Anderson directed that same year, was among the show's most memorable episodes. Anderson added an unexpected twist to what was supposed to be a fun sci-fi action episode: ice hockey. He choreographed the alien battle scenes using his moves from his 15 years of amateur hockey. Like power plays on ice, he studied NHL games, watched tapes, and drew alien fights. things heated up. Because he insisted on doing retakes, the episode cost $300,000 more than expected. A total of 47 takes were needed for a single fight scene. Anderson persisted even after the stunt coordinator resigned. All he could think about was obsession. While eating lunch with the stunt crew, he even worked on his fighting techniques. A record-breaking 3.1 million viewers tuned in to see the episode when it aired. It surpassed all other episodes of the season in terms of viewership. However, Anderson was secretly unraveling at the same time the show was reaching its peak. While accepting the Saturn Award for Best Actor in 2001, he was quietly battling a serious case of burnout. His seemingly easy 3-day work week actually began at 5 in the morning and ended at 7 in the evening. He never got a break. The strain was unbearable. His health was deteriorating. He confided in co-star Michael Shanks. Without pills, he couldn't get any sleep. Every day, he would drink 8 or 10 cups of coffee simply to keep himself awake. The audience witnessed an upbeat actor during his acceptance speech. However, the makeup artist backstage had to conceal the bags under his eyes. He was contemplating leaving the show after season 7 and was seeing a therapist twice a week. The final straw was when he nodded off during a live interview. MGM then became involved. They reduced his publicity duties by 50% and appointed a personal assistant to help him out. During those therapy sessions, no one except Amanda Tapping was aware of them. Anderson was unafraid to take chances with his career, despite years of bearing that weight. Something entirely out of the ordinary happened to him in 1992. Through the Eyes of a Killer was his CBS thriller, in which he starred. His accustomed fan base was shocked when it aired on December 15th. This time around, he portrayed contractor Ray Bolano, who becomes a stalker following an affair with Lori. She tries to end it, but he won't let go. For those who had only known him as the lovable, crafty MacGyver, the film was a shocking departure from his usual lighthearted persona. The 94-minute film was shot in Vancouver and is based on a short story named The Master Builder. Records were not broken by the film. A small number of IMDb users gave it a 5.9 rating. However, it demonstrated that Anderson was not hesitant to reveal a more sinister side of his personality. That same boldness reappeared in 2006, albeit with a comedic twist. Kiss Kiss Bang Bangalore, an episode of The Simpsons that aired on April 9th, featured Anderson. Dan Castellan, who provided the voice for Homer and had a cameo appearance on Stargate SG-1 the previous year, also wrote the episode. Anderson, in his self-portrait, encounters MacGyver fanatics Patty and Selma in the episode. They and the audience are taken aback when Anderson admits he never enjoyed playing MacGyver and did it solely for the money. They capture him, but he manages to get away by concentrating sunlight through a contact lens and burning through his ropes. Traditional MacGyver. After that, it becomes much funnier. In his quest for ever-increasing escape challenges, Anderson begs Patty and Selma to continue kidnapping him. It was top-notch. He embraced the ridiculousness in humor, making fun of himself, and his fans adored it. Most people were surprised to see a new side of him in it. The reputation of Richard Dean Anderson as a man who would never settle down had always been there. However, a shift occurred in 1992. The news spread that he was in a relationship with East German figure skater Katharina Witt. She was very special among athletes, one of the most famous people on the planet back then. She won the world championship 4 times. Their romance lasted all of 2 months at most. Their public appearances together took place between March and April of 1992, and the press couldn't get enough of them. Then just like that, it ended. The breakup occurred while Witt was in the midst of a competition, and Anderson stated that she couldn't cope with the constant scrutiny. Some believed he had finally found a place to stay this time, but it was over as fast as it had begun. His longest-lasting relationship prior to that occurred in the 1980s. His relationship with actress Shella Ward lasted from 1983 to 1986, when they were both cast as siblings on the same show. They met on set. Screen romance blossomed in a flash. After Shella relocated to Los Angeles, they began to share a West Hollywood apartment. They carried on as if they were married, even though they were not. But he had to work 15-hour days on MacGyver, so they became what he referred to as a weekend couple. It was a lovely relationship, Anderson reflected afterwards, but he was terrified of getting married. Following their breakup, he dated Terry Hatcher from 1991 to 1993. Even after nearly 2 years, there was still no dedication to the relationship. We parted ways amicably in both relationships. It was still common knowledge in Hollywood that Anderson never tied the knot. Then he met someone who shook up his entire routine. A woman named April Prose was she. A wardrobe stylist, not a famous person she was. When a mutual friend set them up in 1996, she wasn't expecting much. In her mind, Anderson was no different from any other actor. He would never really commit. But April contacted her mom to tell her she had found the man she would spend the rest of her life with, after only one date. They were a couple for 7 years. Anna Rose Anderson gave birth to their daughter, Y. Quinn, on August 2, 1998. In terms of age, Anderson was 48. He became a father despite never having married. They built a life together, even though he didn't marry April either. There was no resentment or animosity between them when they finally broke up in 2003. According to Anderson, his daughter is now his sole concern. However, a brief romance nearly altered the course of events for the worst years prior to Y's birth. Lara Flynn Bowl began seeing Anderson in 1995. At the age of 25, her portrayal in Twin Peaks had made her a Hollywood celebrity. Their every move was micromanaged by the media. Their age gap of 21 years was a hot subject. Everywhere they went, tabloids trailed behind. It was devastating, according to Anderson, who had maintained his anonymity for the majority of his career. Even though the couple broke up quickly, the news coverage lingered. This, he recalled afterwards, was the moment when he understood how poisonous the limelight could be. Following that, he started to distance himself from the public eye. He made a big choice in 1997 when filming Stargate SG-1 began. He uprooted his life and headed west to Vancouver. Distancing himself was important to him. Peace and quiet were what he desired. He desired seclusion. He avoided Hollywood parties and red carpets for 8 months of the year by staying in Canada. There was a hike. He and his pals went hockey playing. That peace took on even greater significance with Y's birth in 1998. He found solace and peace in his Vancouver home, where he could simply be a father. However, Wig's birth was anything but tranquil. I was frightened. Upon emerging, she was unable to breathe. She showed no signs of emotion. Surgeons moved quickly to rescue her, and Anderson, striving to maintain his composure, stood motionless. He cried out in pain when they finally assured him she was fine. Years later, he reflected on the experience and said it was life-altering. It had a profound effect on him. She became the center of attention the moment that happened. Anderson found himself in the unique position of being a single father after his divorce from April in 2003. He remained silent. He took it on board. From changing diapers to feeding the baby, he did it all. By 2017, he was still picking up Y from school every morning and driving her to school every day, even though he was in his late 60s. As an actor, he retired. He preferred days away from sets and scripts on his Malibu farm. Up until 3 in the morning, he continued. To see how she was doing was never an expense. There was always an explanation for her sobs. He said that becoming a father at the age of 48 was more difficult than he had anticipated. Almost every day in his first year, Wig sobbed. He made an effort to remain composed when April initially informed him of her pregnancy. But before long, he was devouring parenting manuals left and right. In preparation for the birth, he even enrolled in yoga classes. Looking at his daughter was all he could do. He went from being hailed as Hollywood's most desirable bachelor to a homebody who would rather hold his child than answer the phone. Everyone was taken aback by his decision in 2013. He resigned. Leaving the industry entirely, he walked away. After leaving Stargate and MacGyver behind, he decided to stop chasing scripts and money when he was 63 years old. He wanted to make the most of every moment now that his daughter was 15. He was exhausted. Toll had been taken by the stunts. What he really wanted, though, was to avoid making the same mistakes again. Individuals such as Terry Hatcher had previously informed him that he was never at home. It was something he hoped his daughter would never say. He declined over $23 million in offers from 2023 to 2025. A life documentary about him was offered $15 million by Netflix. Yes, he declined. A life of contentment was not what he desired. 5 episodes of Stargate were offered $5 million by Disney. A single episode of the rebooted MacGyver was offered $3 million by Paramount. He said nothing at all. According to a news outlet, no actor in Hollywood history has turned down more money, more offers, and more fame than Richard Dean Anderson. In spite of this, he remains unremorseful. Rebooting MacGyver changed who he was. False nostalgia didn't interest him, he said. Fewer and fewer things were aligning with his beliefs, and he only agreed to them when he truly believed in them. Anderson stunned fans once again in May 2025 at a convention in London. Not even fame crossed his lips. The industry was not lauded by him. He said that Hollywood was a machine that killed souls. Its focus, he claimed, had shifted from people to money. Astounded fans couldn't believe their eyes. Anderson possessed an innate ability to captivate and woo audiences. However, he spared no expense this time. He took Amanda Tapping's place at the last minute and became the event's emotional focal point. Who needs tickets anymore? They're all gone. There were sobs. His charisma had worn off. He was being completely honest. Anderson, who is 75 years old now, enjoys a peaceful life in Malibu. His net worth is $30 million according to estimates. His home is valued at $9.5 million, and he pays property taxes totaling $112,000 per year. But opulence isn't his priority. He is involved with environmental organizations. A member of the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society's advisory board, he is involved in the fight against illegal whaling. Youth programs have his full backing. His annual attendance at fan events is a meager 3. Now peace is his life's focus. Quitting wasn't his goal. He withdrew to be there. Being a father took precedence over his desire to be famous, and he also preferred real life to the limelight.